Well, we witnessed something that we've seen a lot of times because we've watched England play Andorra, it seems about 100 times in our lives.
Yes, we have.
And we know Andorra are very organised. We know they're really difficult to shift out of this sort of deep block 5-4-1 shape. And England, again, really struggled to entertain us, I suppose, and to thrill. But they were much better than they were in Barcelona in June when you know, they won 1-0 away to Andorra, and it wasn't pretty. Tuchel had promised this would be much more like the England he wants to create with better patterns of play, and we did see that. They moved the ball quicker. Elliot Anderson was very impressive in the middle. Madueke was very good on the flanks, so there was a bit better sort of one-on-one play wide. But you know, there were outbreaks of really good football, and then there were periods where it looked a lot like what we've seen before, which is England struggling and huffing and puffing to try and break down a smaller opposition. They tried a lap of honour at the end. Most of the fans had left, which sort of said something. I think that image of Tuchel that some of the front pages or back pages have carried, that great image of him sitting on his sort of...
Bielsa-esque. It's like
Bielsa-esque.
Yeah.
And in similar pain, actually.
Yes,
and just sitting on his sort of trunk of water bottles, contemplating the meaning of life while England sort of pass the ball around endlessly against a team that's ranked about the same as Chinese Taipei. I mean, it's welcome to being the England manager.
Below them, actually.
Below them. There you go. Look, it was better. I don't want to be facetious about England. It was a lot better, actually, than the Andorra game in June. They're at the stage of having to try and take baby steps, I guess, because the start of Tuchel's reign has been so sort of mixed, and June was such a downer. So he was quite upbeat in his press conference. He felt it was a necessary improvement. But we all know it's Serbia on Tuesday that in some ways his reign starts.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in depth a little bit later on in the show. Jackie, what's the problem, though? It's a 2-0 victory. Why is the performance so vital for England rather than almost the result, do you feel?
Because fans want to believe that England men are going to win a major trophy. People want to believe it's going to happen. Gareth Southgate raised the bar from level par quarterfinals to level par finals, as has Serena Wiegmann. The difference is she's got over the line twice. We've had that feeling. We've seen the victory parades along the Mall. We want to get over the final line, and getting to 2 finals under Gareth Southgate was outstanding compared to where England fans had been and journalists and everybody who'd been on those journeys. But it hasn't necessarily masqueraded some of the way that people feel. And I think quite often it's not necessarily where your team are in a table, whether it's in the Premier League, whether it's in non-league. It's how you feel about the direction of travel.
Yeah.
And Thomas Tuchel has been brought in to win the World Cup. It's a short 18-month contract. If he wins the World Cup, not one sausage is going to be looking back and saying, do you remember at Villa Park when it was a little bit flat and there weren't that many fans there at the final whistle and they didn't win 4-0, they only won 2-0? It's about winning something. So the question is, are they on track? Are we seeing signs that he's bringing something different? There are so many players out injured who will presumably be at the World Cup if they're fit. And the players always say, when you play against that kind of side, ranked where we said they were, 174 in the world, below St Vincent and the Grenadines, you want them to win 5, 6, 7-0. You want them to be exciting. You want them to be getting fans off their seats. Of course you do. But really, you want them to qualify with ease, which is something that so many teams have not managed to do. Italy weren't at the last World Cup. No. Chile have just failed to qualify for 3 World Cups in a row. Nigeria, Egypt with Mo Salah and the Ivory Coast, they weren't at the last World Cup. England are taking qualification for granted now. They need to win something. So last night, if you're a paying fan, I totally feel for you. If you're a journalist, less so because you're paid to be there. But are England going to win the World Cup? Were there signs? I like the fact that he was quite honest afterwards, saying, I wanted more from Eza. I liked what I saw from Noni, liked what I saw from Anderson. These are positive signs. So Tuesday night, as you say, that's going to be more fun. They're going to come out to play Serbia a little bit more, and the atmosphere is going to be a heck of a lot better.
Jason, it was referred to as insipid on The Observer.
Yeah.
Is that fair? Was it insipid?
I mean, I think the problem is a lot of qualification games are insipid. I mean, we've been here before. If you look at the history of just covering qualification for tournaments, they tend to be not that thrilling, the games. The problem with Tuchel, I think, is that he came in, and I was at one of his original press conferences where he said England had no identity, it was all a bit turgid at the Euros. I'm going to give you that. And we're like, OK, fine. You've kind of like had a real go at Gareth Southgate there, really. You know, it's quite strong stuff. OK, you've talked the talk, now walk the walk. Yeah. And I think if you're going in there and saying, I'm going to give you this identity, I'm going to play this type of football, I'm going to get... And then you're watching it, you're thinking, 5 games in now, we're still waiting. I know, and it's 5 games into a very short reign, in which obviously it will culminate with the World Cup. And I'm still waiting. I'm still waiting to see. Now, that might be quite a harsh judgment by me, but he's given a harsh judgment when he came in. Yeah. So if you're going to give a harsh judgment, you're going to expect harsh judgments. You know, if you're going to come in there and be the big sort of manager that he is, obviously paid an awful lot of money on a short-term contract to win the World Cup, that's it, as Jackie says, that is it. So therefore, we are allowed then to give them quite harsh judgments in return, because that's what he's asked for. So that's the problem I have with it. I think the qualification campaign as such, yeah, 4 from 4, no goals conceded, absolutely fine. They're going to sail through to the World Cup. Hopefully, if they come out of Serbia with a decent result, it'll be fine. But we want more. This is about more now. We've done all this before. We've got to tournaments. As Jackie says, England have got to finals. We want the man to win it now. So he has to show that. And I think he's not showing enough at the moment. He's not showing us enough that he can win a tournament with England. And I think that's the problem I have with it.
What does he have to do then? You know, we saw him sat on a box. You know, we've watched body language actually from managers. You know, no more so than Ruben Amorim in recent weeks. You know, so we're witnessing kind of this tough watch that, as it was called in the Sunday Telegraph. You know, tough watch, Thomas. There we are, the picture there. What does he have to do then? As Jackie said, does it have to be a 4-0 will? Does it have to be emphatic? Did it have to be controlling the whole pitch? What did we expect?
I think when Jack said it's about the direction of travel, I think that's correct. And he was actually asked about his comments about Gareth yesterday in the press conference. There was a question saying, well, you promised more rhythm, more intensity, identity. Where is it? And he was very strong, and he said, I am convinced that we've started something today, that we're on the right path. And as I say, in fairness, there were better signs, but it is relative.
He's only had 5 games.
He's only had 5 games, and it is part of the strange sort of short reign that right from the starting gun, he's under this sort of pressure. I'm not going to judge anything until I see them in Belgrade. I do also think England are under a unique pressure, but maybe because of... I wrote about this week, but maybe because the Premier League's so good and so exciting that when England play, everyone is a little bit... And I think the fans go into these games almost wanting to see a bad performance, almost angry. And so, for example, Germany haven't been booed off at home for 2 years. England get booed off all the time. You know, I think...
Why is that? Do you think our fans expect more? I
think there's a frustration they're not winning. I mean, I think we talk about Italy not qualifying for tournament, but they've won. They've won a Euros. England haven't won, and that's the problem. It's like, yes, they keep going so far, but it's that point of like getting over the line and being winners. I mean, the women's team have done it. You know, the men's team still haven't done it. During the week, Tuchel was saying, well, it shows that England aren't cursed. Well, of course they're not cursed. You know, they're just not cursed. It's just a question of getting over the line and actually having that sort of winning mentality to do so. And I think that's the frustration for the supporters. And I think touching on the Premier League is quite an interesting one, because we've come into the Premier League, it's been, it's exciting, it's the Premier League, then it stops. Yeah. And then you're thinking, right, go on, England, entertain us. And I know we're in the results business, but also the entertainment business. And you watch that last night, you're thinking, oh, I'd rather watch a Premier League game, wouldn't you? And that's the point. And the great thing about England is they're the only thing in town when they play. The terrible thing about England is they're the only team in town when they play. And it's all or nothing. The focus on England is 100%. And obviously then they become under more scrutiny. We obviously harder on them in some ways, but we expect more from them as well. I think it's an opportunity for them to deliver, and I think we haven't seen that yet for quite a long time. And I think Gareth brought a lot of excitement around getting deep into tournaments, winning knockout phases, winning penalty shootouts. Absolutely fantastic. And now it's about getting over the line in the way that obviously England done with Serena Wiegmann.
I would say, in fairness to Tuchel, that the last year of the Gareth reign, the last 6 months, were a dip compared to what had come before.
Still, okay.
And so I do think what we're seeing now is also in the context of that Euros, where yes, England got the final, but in terms of entertainment, it wasn't there. So there's something about the mix of players in the squad that, in fairness to Tuchel, he is trying to sort out. But he was wrong to sort of suggest it was Gareth's fault, I think. I think we're just seeing maybe now some of the issues that Gareth was trying to deal with.
Once you've done that, though, going back to the point I made before, once you've done that, you've created a problem for yourself. So we can get a reference back to that and say, well, you said you were going to do this, and you still haven't done it. And I know you're saying it's only 5 games in, but It could be Southern, by the way. He chose not to take the November camp. That was his decision. It could be Southern. So the one thing I've said to him before is, you can't complain to us about not having enough time with the players because you decided to give up a camp. You know, that was your choice. And I know I'm sounding like I'm being quite harsh on him, but I think he needs that in some ways to be said to him. You know, he needs to be said, you decided not to start until January. You could have started in November. That was your decision. I know he didn't have his backroom staff in place, but you could have taken over that camp. You could have had 2 more months working with England in terms of behind the scenes and being through the FA, but you chose not to do that. OK, fine, you've done that. So don't complain to us about not having much time. Plus, also, you wanted a short-term contract. You wanted this to be just one hit, short, sharp, go in there, try and win the World Cup. So get on with it, you know?
Do you feel he's taken off on more than he can chew then? Is that the feeling?
No, not at all. Not remotely. No.
Okay.
This is a top manager. This is a Champions League winning manager. You know, this should be something he embraces.
He's been brought in for this.
Yeah.
He's been brought in because he has that experience, because he knows what it feels like to be expected to win Champions Leagues and to win. So that's what he's for. And we haven't mentioned it yet. Maybe it's not relevant and people kind of tiptoe around it in the modern day, understandably so. But he is German. He's a German who traditionally we've all grown... Well, I'm the only English one here, actually. You two are Scottish, aren't you?
We had Bernie votes, and that
Yeah,
the German
that's not a good
managers.
reference.
Oh, yeah, sorry about that. But the fact is, England have gone out and got a German manager. So it's almost like you kind of have to really show it on the pitch. You have to show progression even more so to have not, however, Eddie Howe didn't get the job, didn't go for the job, whatever it was. The fact you have a German in charge of the English national side, we don't have an English male or female head coach, is not ideal. You forget about it on the women's side for obvious reasons. Everybody adores Wiegman. But on the men's side, he has so much to prove. And as you said, Jason, we haven't seen it yet. Over the years, a lot of qualifiers have been pretty turgid.
Yeah.
Like Henry Winter said, he's been to, 100 of them, qualifiers, and he said he can count on one hand how many have actually been any good. So you want to see the progression. You want to see the direction of travel.
That sort of 100 games, you know, kind of... it's quite a tough task to ask.
I don't think they do, and I don't think the manager can do anything about an international calendar, which is, I think, is insane. You know, England play Andorra more often than they play Holland or Spain or Argentina or Brazil. You wouldn't design a competition where you're almost never playing the best teams and you're always playing these qualifiers, and it's just hard to look good. But I always find the messaging really interesting around England, and I do think there's been a change this week where Tuchel is a bit more humility, perhaps, a bit more focus on it. You know, I was on learning on the job for the first 4 games, so a bit more. Maybe it's my fault a little bit.
Yeah.
And it's a fresh start, and we're going to work. And one thing that was interesting at the game yesterday was, you remember the sort of the special tune that the FA had commissioned for Tuchel,
Thomas Tuchel's Army.
Thomas Tuchel's Army. Tell me if you want it. Drum and bass. They didn't play it yesterday, and that just. I mean, there were fire cannons and stuff, but it seemed like they were just trying to let's just dial it down a little bit and maybe restart. But the real restart, as I've said, is in Belgrade.
Dare I ask, were there any positives from yesterday?
Oh no, absolutely. Elliot Anderson was fantastic. Okay. I mean, I think he's put down a big marker there to be in the team against Serbia. I think he's got a big marker there to be in the team, or the squad, sorry, going forward for the World Cup. Obviously, he was brilliant in the Euros. I think it was the right decision to take him to the Euros, under 21, sorry, rather than with the senior squad in the summer. I like that decision. I think you want a player to go and win something. He's done that. I think he was a huge positive. I thought Nani Madueke was quite good. It was interesting that Tuchel criticised him out of position, which is fine. I think it's absolutely fine. He's allowed to do that. You know, obviously he wants to get more out of the player. Yeah. But I've really liked him so far this season. I think he's got a bit of directness to him. And also, as we already touched on, a lot of players were missing, you know, and I think sometimes you're throwing a team together, so it's a bit difficult to sort of criticise too much in terms of like a team being thrown together. Half that team won't be in the team at the World Cup. They definitely won't be. I think obviously half the team were missing. So that's all understandable. But those two definitely, I mean, Anderson in particular, I think Anderson's got a real chance of being in the team, never mind in the squad. I think we've all looked at him and liked him the last year in particular. To be fair to Tuchel, he's managed that quite well. As I say, let him go to the Euros within under-21s. He always had it in mind to put him into this squad. And I think it's the same with Adam Wharton, who I think, again, is a great chance. It's a shame he's injured. I think he's another one who could come in. And that might transform that midfield a little bit. So I think there are positives, absolutely.
So my final question then is perhaps to all of you. Could any manager, do you think, get a team up for that game? You know, it's Andorra. The stakes are pretty low at the moment. They're top of the table. So Do you think any manager could have done that? Or
I don't think they weren't up for it. In fairness to the players, I don't think they weren't up for it. I think when you hear the players come off the pitch, they're like, win, clean sheet.
Yes.
It's really hard to break them down. And I did my Square Stato thing and went online and looked at the average positions after the game. And 19 out of the 20 outfield players were camped in their Andorra's defensive half. So when players talk about it and ex-players talk about it, they say how hard it is at the time. And I do think it would have been very different had England got an early goal. And Tuchel said afterwards, it took a while for the second goal to come. And when, I think it was 67th minute, I think, he said after that, then we could play, we could bring on the subs and it was more fun. So, yes, we're going to read something into it, of course, because it's not the first time England have struggled. But there's a few other things maybe we'll come on to in due course about playing Harry Kane 90 minutes in both games against Andorra. How helpful was that to anything and to the World Cup, which is really what we're talking about here?
Yeah.
The goal is to win the World Cup. Yes, you want to beat Andorra, but there are question marks.
I thought that was strange. I think it should have come off. It definitely should have come off and put one.
And who's his understudy? I mean, what are we going to...
just Watkins? As I say, we've got dearth.
There's real dearth in number 9 as centre forward, but I think it's a bit perverse not to bring Watkins on. And also at Villa Park as well.
And also he struggled, Harry. It was one of his
just take him off. You're allowed to take him off. You know, it's not... Doesn't have to play the whole game. I think that was a really strange decision, actually. I agree with that.
Yeah, so you said Harry Kane's probably worst performance in an English shirt.
I couldn't remember, you know, and he's a loud one, isn't he? But I can't remember seeing him less effective. I mean,
we had about 5 defenders around him.
Yeah, 5 defenders. and I mean, it's hard to look good against Andorra. Like one of the things they did was they just let Dan Burn have the ball, and they defended everyone else.
So why play Dan Burn then? Why play a non-ball playing centre half?
Absolutely.
You know, you can ask that question. Why play Dan Burn? And obviously he's going to play John Stones, but why play Dan Burn then? If you know that's going to be a problem, then don't play him. Yeah. You know, that's why and we talk about, obviously, what I found quite maddening with them talking last night, saying, yes, it's difficult, Andorra, you know, low block, defensive. This was exactly what we're saying in the Euros. They were vilifying the team in the Euros for having that against virtually every team they played in the group stages, didn't they? Obviously Slovenia and so on, low block. So we've got to find a way. They have to find a way.
As well.
Yeah, Serbia will sit back, but they'll have more threat going forward. But so England have to find a way. And actually, you could argue, counter-argument is to say this is a good test for England, what they might face at the World Cup when they play a lesser nation. So therefore, they just about passed it. Not really. I mean, I wasn't that impressed by a lot of the play. I think it was they were playing in areas that were making it easy for Andorra. I felt they were going into the centre of the pitch too much, and I just think they should have try and get in behind them more. But I mean, listen. It worries me that there isn't a pattern of play yet. There isn't a real identity. That's the main issue I have with it.